sportsNOLAtv is in Harahan at Back to Basics Basketball Academy. Fantastic facility. You want a workout opportunity, you want a group opportunity, you want a party opportunity, you want personal training. You got it all here at Back to Basics Basketball Academy in Harahan, which is where we originate from this evening. And a pleasant good evening to you. Ken Trahan with you. Welcome to sportsNOLAtv from Back to Basics. What a fabulous facility this is. And of course, our entire crew was partaking a little while ago, thinking and dreaming that they could make a shot, which none of them have yet, I don't believe. That said, it's great to be here and to be here with our regulars, including Brian Allee-Walsh of sportsNOLA.com. Brian, good evening to you.
Ken, always a pleasure, my friend. Just a couple quick shout outs to Danica Patrick for finishing 8th at the Daytona 500, and also to the Ben Franklin girls soccer team for winning their first state championship since 2004. Congratulations to everybody.
Read my story at sportsNOLA.com about that brilliant freshman, Alexis Thomas, okay? Yeah. Make sure you do so. Torrance Small, former New Orleans Saints wide receiver. Always a pleasure, T. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, Ken, and glad to be back, and glad to be back in Back to Basics. We lose a lot of our fundamentals, and you come here, this is where you learn your fundamentals.
Learn them all. Figure out how to shoot, how to pass, how to play the game, discipline. It's all possible here at Back to Basics. Speaking of basics, our special guest today basically was fast. That's about the best way you can describe him. He was popular. He earned that popularity. He was a Pro Bowler. He earned that. He was a fan favorite. He was a guy that electrified us all and made us all proud because he was a great example of don't ever let anyone tell you you cannot do something. He proved that you could. Michael Lewis, Saints ambassador par excellence. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Now listen, Michael, first and foremost, basketball. Did you ever partake?
Oh, yeah. I got a little game. I try to do my thing. I was an athlete, so, basketball is one of the things that I like doing. But, I don't know where my skills at right now. Football just took over, so I don't know how good I am with basketball right now.
Football and track and field, too?
Did a little of that, yeah. Baseball. I mean, hey, anything to get out the house.
Well, we got you out this evening at a great place here at Back to Basics, and it's great to have you with us. And when we return in just a moment, we'll delve into the New Orleans Saints, the NFL, the Combine going on in Indianapolis, a lot of basketball to come as well. We're just getting started. sportsNOLAtv, Back to Basics Basketball Academy in Harahan on WHNO Channel 20. I did not know that. The Combine in New Orleans on 2 occasions. Too bad we don't have that opportunity here again because it is popular regardless of how overrated it is, which we'll get into in just a moment. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv, Back to Basics Basketball Academy, Evans Road in Harahan. Fantastic facility. If you haven't been here, you need to check it out. Back to Basics. Well, the Saints, of course, are into their offseason and looking at what their possibilities are. Studying people at the Combine, looking at potential draft picks. They will select 15th overall in the first round. So, Brian, as we speak, you look at the potential. We've talked about the fact that they'll have to cut payroll. We know they've already done that to some degree. Restructuring is a part of it. This is a fluid conversation we've been having. Anything else on the horizon that you see that we haven't spoken about yet, or anything that you expect to happen here in the near future?
Well, Kenny, I think right now the club is on hold, I think in some ways because of the decisions that Jonathan Vilma and Will Smith are about to have to make in the next 12 days before the free agency kicks in on March the 12th. If they decide not to restructure, okay, then the team will then know where they can go, how much they can spend toward not only the, really more toward free agency than the draft. The draft is pretty much slotted, But I'll tell you what, as you analyze this draft and where the Saints' needs are, guys, it appears to me that they're going to be in a good position like a lot of clubs in the middle of the draft. They're going to get offers to trade down. And by trading down, you can pick up multiple picks. You probably can still pick up your player of desire even by moving down. So it'll be interesting to see the dynamics over the next, what's going to happen over the next few weeks.
Torrance, they restructured Lofton and they cut Thomas and Patrick last week, and these are just the first moves of many to come, I'm certain.
Yes, those are some minor moves right now. The bigger move is going to be more with Vilma and Smith. See what those guys are going to do, as Brian alluded to early. It's going to free up some money and give them opportunity to go out and hopefully bring in somebody that can help with some good free agents that's out there. We still don't know what's going to be available because some guys might get franchise guys. You might have a few guys that get franchise, might get some guys that want to sign back. So we really don't know what's out there is available for the Saints right now. Do they want to go young? I think with Rob Ryan coming in, and I'm pretty sure we're going to go defense heavy in this draft here, but with Rob Ryan coming in, I'm pretty sure he wants some vets back there to be able to help out with his new scheme.
Let's take a look at the NFL calendar, and then we'll address Michael about the situation, the calendar, about what's coming up. Franchise tag window, of course, is going on as we speak, and the deadline approaching. Combine, as we know, going on as we speak, and then coming up second week of March, teams can speak with and negotiate with their own unrestricted free agents, and then March 12th, the league year begins, and of course the NFL draft, April 25th through the 27th. We set our calendar to mark the time because it's the same time as the Zurich Classic of New Orleans every year. Unfortunately, Michael, Bushrod's another big item for this team. They'll have to decide. And when you look at the receivers on this team, I think I know the answer, and I know we all like Colston. He's a really good player, but I suspect that the guy you probably like is Lance Moore. He's been here for a while. Not a big guy like you, just a really good receiver, runs great routes, catches the ball, and is dependable. What about this receiving core this team has?
The receiving core, you know, the best thing about it, I play with those guys, and what makes them so special is that they stick together regardless to what goes on. And I think losing CJ, you know, was a factor, and losing the coaches was one thing else. You know, those guys had to try to stick together, you know, learning a new coach and things like that. But having a veteran like Devin Henderson, who's been there for a long time, Colston stepping up as a leader, you know, with somebody like Lance, those guys are veterans. So teaching the younger guys, you know, what they need to know about, you know, being in this profession, I think that those guys are really sticking together and doing the things that they have to. And I think that's the best thing about this organization is that, you know, when it comes down to offense, most of the guys are still here, you know. Like say we have Bushrod who's coming up, you know, but besides that, Devery, you know, it's not too many. So you got to look at going towards defense because, you know, our offenses pretty much always have been doing what they've been doing since Sean got here in 06.
Before we talk about the combine, Michael, I want to ask you as well about the one rule I'm sure you probably don't like with the kickoff being moved the way it was, and returns have been taken out of the game to a large degree, especially at these indoor stadiums like the Saints have.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If you go back, I don't know. When I was playing, it was kicking the ball more high in the air, and we couldn't really, you know, 5 yards in the end zone, you're not coming out, period. But now they're kicking it, trying to get it in the back of the end zone, the ball's getting there faster. So you have actually more guys taking the ball out. I said if I had opportunity to do it that way, it would be a little bit better because guys are not getting a full start like we got a chance to. We can start at the 10-yard line and run full speed. By the time a guy catches the ball, we pass the 50-yard line. Now you don't have a running start. So you down, you got to have your hands down, and you're only getting a 5-yard jump when we had almost 15 yards where we can actually run down. So you have more guys trying to take the ball out because of that, because guys are not getting down there and think you're not going to take it. So a lot of the kickoff teams are starting to relax, and that's when you start to see guys running 109, 108, you know, things like that because of the fact that guys are still slowing down when they get close in because they don't think a guy's going to bring it out.
It's an exciting part of the game, and it's largely been muted based upon the rule change. The scouting combine underway in Indianapolis, and it's not much ado about nothing. It is overrated, but there are some things you pay attention to. And Brian, I guess first and foremost, 13 LSU players there, including some surefire first-rounders, and Kiki Mingo, who certainly helped himself with a great workout Monday with the times he ran. And he's just one of those guys that he looks great because he's tall and he runs fast. Sam Montgomery on the other side is probably the more consistent player. He's a first-rounder too, but these are two guys that clearly are being focused upon because they're first-rounders.
And you know what, they happen to fit needs of what the Saints are looking for in the draft as well. It's amazing, Kenny and guys, when you think about they've got 13 players. That's counting the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. They've got 13 guys at the combine, which is incredible when you think about the amount of talent. And a lot of these guys are going to go pretty darn high. First, second day, third day draft picks. A lot of guys will be in the league.
This guy's 6'5", outside backer, a defensive end. He ran a 4.55 or so today at the combine, and you know that's real time, Torrance.
Oh, yes. You can ask this guy next to me. There's no replacement for speed. Believe me, no replacement. You can be athletic, but no replacement for speed. One thing about this guy who he reminds me of is a Simeon Rice. Slim fit, hybrid guy, can come off that corner. I think he's going to cause havoc. I think he's going to be much better in the pros than he was in college.
Yeah, a lot of guys, Michael, that are from LSU, a couple of locals. Of course, Trahan Matthew, who got kicked off the team from St. Augustine, P.J. Lonergan from Rummel. You want to see these local guys have a chance and maybe get drafted.
Oh, yeah, and that's the most important thing because I think it gives a lot of kids here, you know, more stability that, you know, I have somebody else to look at, you know what I'm saying? Me coming up, going a different route, but now you see these guys going to college and doing these things. That gives kids, you know, more confidence than, you know, this is what I can do to get to where I need to get at.
You know, Kenny, when we sit next to Michael Lewis, Michael, I'm assuming that you did not participate in the combine when you were. Okay, well, and I don't mean that as a slight. I don't.
But
mean
we'll
that,
laugh too. It's okay.
Yeah, I don't mean that as a slight at all. But what's happened to the combine now? I mean, they're turning this thing into a reality show.
Ridiculous.
You know, they have plans to go to these mini sites and have the winners advance to the next level. This would have been a great opportunity for someone like you to have gone to show yourself off, you know, at this kind of thing.
Yes, and what makes it bad, and I think now doing it that way or whatever, you're seeing a lot of guys starting to bail out and just wait till they come to their schools now because of what's going on.
Especially the skill guys.
Exactly, you know, and I guess guys always like, you know, feel like they're wasting their time going out there because it's becoming a reality show type thing instead of it's being what it's supposed to be about, is your skills in football.
Yeah. Well, what the NFL is trying to do is capitalize, guys. Yeah. They're all about the money. They
Sure
don't
it
care.
is, absolutely.
You know, it's nothing about the players, and it's trying to bring the fans as close as they can to the players to see it from our point of view, from the coach's point of view, from the scouting point of view. They want to give all those things, and that's the reason for all this.
And they want to dominate the calendar. They just want to dominate. They're going to push the draft back, going to push the dates back for preseason, you know, camps or whatever you want to call them now, so that they become the top item 10 or 11 months a year rather than 8 or 9 months a year. That's the NFL. It's big business. They win at the end of the day, and I suspect they're going to keep winning. When we return in just a moment, we'll take a look at Tom Benson's other Major League franchise, your New Orleans Hornets, soon to be the Pelicans. Call them what you may. They won a game last night. More on that coming up as we continue with Sports NOLA TV, speaking basketball at Back to Basics 2 Academy in Harahan, right here on WHNO Channel 20. Want to win in the NBA, you've got to be able to score the basketball. This team couldn't score last year, haven't been able to score for a year and a half, nearly 2 years. Their scoring is up and they're more competitive now. One simple reason, the presence of Eric Gordon, for better or for worse, has definitely given them more scoring punch. And they've scored 100 points or more in their last 3 games. Of course, they only won one of those games, and that was last night. Let's take a look at some Hornets results of this past week and what's happened with this team and where they're at. And of course, they played the Bulls and they couldn't score. They never do against Chicago, and they weren't able to win this game. They were able to score against Cleveland, but Kyrie Irving and company too much, beat them by 5. And then they led Dallas almost the entire game. But then 2 big threes in the final minute. Mike James and Vince Carter beat New Orleans at the arena. And then last night, the Hornets took care of business as they handled the Sacramento Kings. Anthony Davis looking on, and the Kings, of course, with Marcus Thornton in tow, and the Hornets were able to get to the rack all night long as they scored 62 points in the paint. They had 11 dunks in this game, 6 of those by Anthony Davis, and Brian, that's his game, running the floor and finishing.
Well, you know, you look at what's happened over the last month to 5 weeks of the Hornets, and yes, Eric Gordon's emergence back on the court is one thing for sure, Ken. The idea that these younger guys and the team in general is playing together, they're playing much better together as a team. They're probably where they should be at this point. And you know what? I predicted maybe 35 wins. They may not hit that, but I'd be surprised if they don't get 30 wins this season.
Well, the other thing, Torrance, and Ryan Anderson's been their best player over the balance of the season. Just been very good. Jason Smith gives them energy off the bench. We mentioned Gordon and Davis, but the most improved player by far is Greivis Vasquez. He's second in the league in assists, and he has the most double-doubles of any guard in the NBA. I'll say that again. The most double-doubles of any guard in the NBA, it's Gravis Vasquez. That's pretty impressive.
Oh, great player. Didn't know much about him earlier, but as the season went on, you cannot ignore this guy. You have to pay attention to him. He does a lot of great things for us. He could play one or two for us as well. He can play two guard for us sometime if Gordon is running the one, which is a great thing. But I love his energy that he brings, and he gets everybody involved in the game.
I know you follow basketball, Michael, and you watch the Hornets play, and you like the game. And of course, the Saints now are on the Hornets. Basically, they're involved with the product, so we see all the same people at the basketball games that we see at the football games.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing that you have, and what you're starting to look at with the Hornets now is that they are becoming a team, and that's what you didn't see a couple of years ago and last year, you know, trying to form a team or whatever, but these guys are starting to stick together and starting to realize that they can be a team and play the way that they were playing lately.
Brian, you mentioned the ceiling, and I think they're probably 30 to 32 wins or somewhere in that vicinity this year. The big key is moving forward. Can they keep Eric Gordon? Will they keep Eric Gordon? Will they trade him in the offseason? He continues to dominate the conversation. Can they show Anthony Davis in 2 or 3 years that they mean business here to help him stay? And then you have the other building blocks with Anderson and Vasquez.
Yeah, you know, they're obviously they're a season to 2 seasons away from really competing, you know, for the in the Western Conference right now. But they're on the fringe, and you know what? I just like what Monty Williams and Dell Demps have been doing. I think they're a real good coaching GM tandem, and I think the ceiling is where for this team to go in the next couple of years. I think people just have to be patient, and they've got to figure out whether Eric Gordon is in or not. And I think that's really important to where this franchise goes.
Well, that's it. That decision's going to have to be made by Dell Demps and Monty Williams. They both got extensions, and they kind of stake their reputation on this player. So I think they're going to have to rectify that in due time. Let's take a look at the upcoming schedule for the New Orleans Hornets. And, of course, the Brooklyn Nets are coming to town. Good team. And they'll be here tomorrow night. Then it's pretty tough timber against the Thunder in Oklahoma City before the Pistons and Greg Monroe out of Helen Cox High School come to town on Friday. So you look at that schedule and you figure maybe a chance to win two if you can beat Brooklyn.
Yes, they have a great opportunity to win too. You beat Brooklyn, you come back. I think Thunder's going to be a little tough cooking for them, but they come back and they have old Greg Monroe, like you say, it's coming back home to play the Pistons, but I think they have an opportunity to beat them.
You like that Brooklyn net look, the black and white, the Jay-Z thing, the Prokhorov thing? You're into that, Michael, or what?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, it's different. You know, you're making changes, and that's where it's going to. Like, you know, everybody hearing about the Pelican, you know, the name change, but it ain't about the name. It's what you put on the field. That's what I mean. On the court is what's going to happen. So, you know, it ain't about the name. It's what you put on the court.
Yeah, we don't have any problem with the name, do you?
No, I don't.
You better not.
You work for the organization.
Let me ask you guys this.
What
will they call the honeybees?
Yeah, they'll have a new dance team name. I have no idea, but suggestions are welcome. When we return, we'll welcome conversation about college basketball and college baseball, both in full swing, when sportsNOLAtv continues from Back to Basics Academy at Harahan on WHNO Channel 20. Our Sports NOLA trivia question of the evening. The Saints will pick 15th in the first round of this year's NFL draft. And our question, how many times in their history have the Saints made a top 6 selection? You've got 4 choices. Was it 4, 6, 8, or 10? Think about it. Early history of the franchise, you know, they weren't very good. So think about the number. Get yourself a choice and come up with an answer a little bit later in the show. Ken Trahan, Back to Basics Basketball Academy, Evans Road in Harahan. Everything you could want is here. Instruction, discipline, facilities. Tell everyone about it and come out and see what they have to offer you, because you can get personal training here and you can learn everything you want to know about basketball and much more, by the way, at Back to Basics Basketball Academy here in Harahan. Sports NOLA TV continues. Ken Trahan with you, and we turn our attention to college basketball. LSU and Tulane, both competitive, both getting to 500 in their respective leagues. Let's take a look at some of the numbers on LSU and Tulane. is there postseason hope? Well, LSU, I would say there is some degree of hope because they're even up in the conference and their RPI is in the top 100 and they're 16-9 overall, coming off of a thrilling game I think just ended against Alabama. Last I checked, they were still playing. A ridiculous game, but a great win at home. And then, of course, the Tulane Green Wave, they got back to 500 in Conference USA as well. Their RPI not nearly as high based upon a cream puff schedule early on in the season, but Ed Conroy's done a good job. Now, you look around the state, guys, and there are 3 teams that have legitimate chances to make it to the NCAA tournament. No better story than Louisiana Tech, undefeated in the WHAC, having a special season. The Demons of Northwestern State, and they're doing it in the Southland Conference. And, of course, the Southern Jaguars on the SWAC at 14-2 in the league. Automatic bid sits there, so the possibilities are real, Brian, that we can have 2, maybe 3 teams in the NCAA tournament this year.
Absolutely, and it's so good to see that college basketball is on the upswing here in the state. You know, the important thing I think there is that Tulane looks like they're going to have to go deep, if not win. They're probably going to have to win their conference tournament. LSU, I still feel, is going to have to stay at 500 in conference and then go deep into their tournament. The other ones, I think, Louisiana Tech. They're
Northwestern
in.
State,
Yeah,
Louisiana
I mean,
Tech,
they're in.
Southern,
They're probably going to win their conference, but they're in. I mean, that club is a strong conference, and they're in. And the other 2, I think, going to have to go deep or win their conference as well. So, but it's a good sign.
Yeah, I think Tech definitely. I think they'll be in. I think Southern is going to be in. I think they get an automatic bid winning the SWAC. Nobody's close to them in the SWAC. My beloved Alcorn State Braves are nowhere to be found. We're deep out of it. But I see those 2. LSU, again, I'm with you. I think they have to go deep into the tournament and not fall below that 500 mark if they're going to get an opportunity to get in. Tulane, I don't see them getting in this year. Hopefully they can rebuild and do some things for next year.
Well, Michael, from the standpoint of building a program and postseason play, Johnny Jones doing a really good job in his first year at LSU. And there's always the NIT. If you can't make the NCAA, if you're a startup program of sorts and you're trying to build it up, getting that secondary invitation is very important to that program at that place and time.
I think so, because then it also gives you, still gets you playing and give other kids to get a chance to look at you knowing you almost made it, you know, into the big thing. But what makes it even much more, have more kids wanting to come back to LSU to play basketball and not just football and things like that. That's what you're looking forward to, is trying to build this program back to where it used to be back in the days when Shaq was here in Fort.
You know, there's been talk is that Johnny Jones perhaps could have been brought back even earlier than now. You know, whether or not you believe in that, but Johnny, I think, is a perfect fit for LSU right now. He knows the program. He's got a good feel for the region. And, you know, there's no reason why LSU cannot be competing in the SEC year in and year out.
Yeah, Dale Brown's been advocating Jones for quite some time after he played for Brown, of course, on some terrific teams. As far as college baseball is concerned, season is well underway. Let's take a look at some of the numbers involving LSU and Tulane here. The Tigers 2-1 this past weekend. They ranked 2nd in the country going into the weekend. They lost 1 and won 1 against BYU, and they crushed Southeastern. Tulane, on the other hand, a very disturbing result. At home, got swept by Notre Dame. This week, LSU and the Raging Cajuns on Tuesday. UNO and Tulane at 3 p.m. Wednesday afternoon at Turchin. Tulane plays Alabama Friday through Sunday. So the upside and the downside, Torrance. The good news is LSU, although they lost a game this weekend, they're awfully good, and they're very poised to make a return to the NCAA tournament. Tulane, on the other hand, you have to be concerned. Notre Dame's a nice team, but you can't get swept at home.
Well, one thing about baseball, when you're playing in these 3-game series for the most part, you don't want to get swept. You definitely, you might go 1-2, but you definitely don't want to get swept. And to get swept, that just puts you behind the 8 ball, definitely when you have a long season.
LSU, Michael, has been a great program for a long time. They were 1 game short of the World Series last year. And again, when you have that type of program and their pedigree, the expectation is you've got to go to Omaha. You've got to make the World Series.
Oh, yeah, and that's what everybody in the state is always looking for, you know, with LSU. Every year they doing well and they get so close, and, you know, not making it to Omaha is like a big downfall, because everybody expects them to be there when it comes down to it, and they haven't been doing it, you know, lately. So, you know, it's something that they have to look forward to.
And Rafe Rhymes, Mason Katz get off to big starts. Bregman's been very good at shortstop for them. Ross, good behind the plate. Brian, this is a good team, but it comes down to pitching always.
It really does, and it looks like, you know, they're still working on their weekend rotation, but they've got a couple guys etched in stone right now. Kenny, if I could just say something real quick about Tulane. This is where Rick Jones's team has to make hay. Not only did they get swept, they got swept at home. Now, they did get 2 good pitching performances from Rosati and Bio.
Yeah.
And, you know, they should have probably won those 2 games, but, man, you cannot get swept at home. That looks bad.
No, you just can't allow that to happen if you want to get back to being an NCAA team, which they haven't been for quite a few years now, Torrance.
Yes, it's been a while since one great player, I can't recall his name. Maybe you guys can help me, Brian. This is your field for the most part. What is the guy named that great hitter that they had?
For Tulane?
Well, they had 5 players make it to Major League Baseball from the 2005 College World Series team.
Yes.
So some outstanding players on that team, from Brian Bogusevic to Micah Owings to Tommy Manzella to Mark Hamilton,
yes.
among others. They had a terrific team then, but they've gradually slipped back, and they just haven't been able to keep up the talent level that they had in those days.
So that's where your recruiting come in at. We have to go back out and you have to recruit, you have to bring in players. You can coach all day, but if you don't have the players to put out there on the field, it's not going to happen.
It certainly isn't, and obviously they've got a lot of improvement to make. We'll see if they can possibly close the gap. We'll find out more when they play an SEC foe in Alabama this coming weekend. We'll take a time out here, but when we return in just a moment, what is the state of college basketball in Louisiana? Or high school basketball? Or professional basketball? The hoops, why not? Because we're at Back to Basics in Harahan, and we're back in a moment on WGSO 990 AM. Our Sports NOLA trivia question of the evening. The Saints picking 15th in the first round of this year's draft. How many times in their history have the Saints made a top 5 selection? That's a top 5 selection. Is it 4, 6, 8, or 10? Are you smart? Do you think you know? Did you make the right guess? Well, there you go. The answer is 6. And check them out. The names Manning, Muncie, Chandler, Rogers, Williams, Bush. One thing in common, they all were what you would call quote-unquote skill position players, whatever that means. It means they were quarterbacks, running backs, or wide receivers, basically, because I'm sure those guys that play interior line or beyond think they're pretty skilled too. But very interesting stuff, good names, good question, and there's your answer, 6. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv, Back to Basics Basketball Academy on Evans Road in Harahan. And speaking of basketball, it's time for our hot seat segment where we place Brian Allee-Walsh on the hot seat with a hot topic of conversation. The state of basketball across the board, professional, college, high school, in Louisiana. Where is the state of basketball in Louisiana? Good, bad, somewhere in between, lukewarm? Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Before I address this question real quickly, is that that number, that trivia answer would have been 7 had Mike Ditka not traded that number 4 or 5 pick to Washington for the entire barrel. They'd have had another skill player up at that spot. All right, so now the question at hand. Fortunately, I think we all can agree on this. It is definitely on an upswing. But that, having said that, we were at the bottom. Okay, and the only way we can determine where we are as far as college basketball goes is how many teams are moving into the postseason. And recently, not many, nada, zilch. But this year, it looks like there could be 2, maybe even 3 that are going to move on. But I think, you know, it has so much to do with coaching and recruiting. And I think that you know, with Ed Conroy at Tulane, with Johnny Jones at LSU, I think Coach
Mark
Schlesinger, Coach Mark at UNO, I think that they're tremendous coaches that are going to definitely improve this product. So I think overall, I think it's definitely on the rise.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is on the rise. One reason why it's going to be on the rise, one thing we know about football, kids in high school now are training with personal trainers right now, and they're getting better at an early age. They're learning how to be a professional at an early age. They're getting all the fundamentals in. They're learning the game right now, and that's why football is taking off so much right now in Louisiana. But basketball is on the way, and one reason is because back to basic. Back to basic. A facility like this is able to get young men and women in here to grow and learn the game and become better. That will help the state, help with high school, with better players in high school, as well as being recruited in to the LSUs and the Tulanes, to the bigger schools. So I always think it starts at the bottom, and that's with our youth. And right now, by us investing in our youth a lot more now with Back to Basics, with a facility like this, it helps us out in the long run.
Michael?
And what makes it even much better being here is that you get young guys, get to play with guys that's already in college and that's been to the pros, been overseas. So now you're getting things from a professional level that they can see and see where their skills at to where they need to work on it. And that's what, coming back here, Back to Basic, makes it even much more special.
Well, I think, Michael, that our doctor friend over here was alluding to his training expertise. And I'm surprised we didn't have like a monitor back here going, sign up here, sign up. But you know what, a lot of it has to do, and I'm going to go even beyond that, facilities as well.
Yes.
That certainly it's been a deterrent for Tulane, okay? And Ed Conroy's got to work, anybody that teaches or coaches over there has got to work overtime to recruit players to come to that institution. That's why I'm saying LSU, there's no reason why LSU cannot compete year in, year out in the SEC. And UNO, there's going to be a struggle for Coach Mark Schlesinger over there, but he's got the right attitude.
Yes. And facilities, as you say, it does take great facilities to get these recruits. Down south, for the most part, we know most people don't come look for basketball down south.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we're trying to improve on. But if you look at the SEC over the years, SEC has been doing very well, not only in baseball and football, but in basketball as well, trying to pick up. And I think it starts with our youth. If we can get our youth, it will help out a lot more with recruiting down this way.
And like you were saying before, with me, it's like, totally different because I get a chance to go back and talk to a lot of the youth and talk about how important, certain situations are. And like you're saying, just having, a nice facility to have, kids to come and look at, does plays a part because that's what they're always looking for.
Yes.
Very well spoken. It's time to render a judgment. Time's up. The judge speaks now. The state of basketball in Louisiana. Great question. We're looking at a culture here that is unquestionably a football culture. Has been, is, and will be for many years to come. That does not mean that basketball cannot bear significance in this state, in this region, in this area on a long-term basis. In fact, I expect that it will. That said, there's a long way to go. When you look at the New Orleans Hornets / Pelicans, even under the Saints moniker and management, they're not drawing very well. And that's a disappointment, I know, to Mr. Benson and the entire leadership of that organization. Part of it is winning. You have to win and have an exciting product, and frankly, they haven't had either one of those elements since Chris Paul was here, along with David West and Tyson Chandler in particular. So that needs to change because people here will go see a winner, and they'll go to an event, but they're not going to see, let's say, the Hornets and the Kings on a Sunday at 5 p.m., just saying. From the standpoint of college facilities, Brian's touched on that. LSU's improved the Assembly Center, modest facility by major college standards, but it's getting better. And they've got a nice practice facility, and they've hired the right coach, and they're making a commitment. At Tulane, they put lipstick on the pig with changing Fogelman to Devlin and dressed it up, but it's still a subpar facility. Although Ed Conroy's done a good job, it will take a little more time. UNO, Mark Schlesinger's the right guy. Lakefront Arena is still a good, viable facility, and they're getting back into Division I, into the Southland Conference, but they're having to build back up from tearing it down, and that's a hurt. By the way, Xavier has a wonderful new facility in the Convocation Center. It's something you need to check out, and of course, they do a great job there. And with regard to high school, listen, the talent level is improving across the board, and there's attendance in high school games, but that's all because of the alma mater and the fact that people are passionate about their schools. But the talent level is improving. Ultimately, that will feed things. But beyond anything else, it's about winning. If you have winning products, people will show up at LSU, which they don't. If you win at Tulane, people will show up like they used to under Perry Clark. If you win at UNO, people will show up like they used to under Tim Floyd and Benny Dees. It's that simple. And where the Hornets are concerned, nothing less than winning will suffice in terms of attracting a fan base to make basketball viable in the state of Louisiana and in the metropolitan New Orleans area. We'll take a time out here. We'll turn our attention to high school sports, state soccer championships, basketball, and more as we continue on sportsNOLAtv from Back to Basics Academy in Harahan. Now trending at sportsNOLA.com, NFL Combine news from Al Dupuis, Renee Nadeau, the latest on free agency. And a good area weekend in basketball. The state quarterfinals boys and girls, going on. Most complete prep coverage, period. Read every soccer story from last week from the state championships, among other things, and my synopsis on soccer as well. And then our first NBC video updates with Lenny Van Gilder and I, sponsored by First NBC Bank, our good and great sponsor. Back to Basics Basketball Academy, Evans Road in Harahan is where sportsNOLAtv originates from here this evening. Like the buzzer, that was cool. And speaking of high school sports, it was a great weekend for soccer. In the state championships, 6 of those decided at Tad Gormley Stadium in New Orleans. Let's take a look at the girls' results. First of all, in Division I, tough loss for the #1 seed, the Doves of St. Scholastica, going down to Lafayette's Mighty Lions, 2-1, a terrific match. What a result in Division II for the Fighting Brian Allee-Walshes of Ben Franklin as they stopped perennial power and top seed Vanderbilt Catholic 2-0 for the title. And then in Division III, the dynasty continues as Sacred Heart of New Orleans wins its 4th straight state championship, knocked off the #1 seed Loyola Prep 3-0. Brilliant performance by Sarah Martin, who had 3 goals in that game. On the boys' side, play it again, Sam. Rubber match goes to Jesuit. They beat St. Paul's 2-1. And that was in overtime. 3rd straight year these two have met in the championship. Took double overtime, and Jesuit pulls it off as they win their 12th overall. St. Louis Catholic Dynasty in Division II wins their 4th straight overall and their 10th as a program since 1997. They beat Beauchene by a 3-0 score. And then Episcopal, the new kid on the block, shocks the #1 seed Newman 2-1. Their first ever appearance in a state title match and their first win as a result. Nice to see the outsider step in because, Brian, as I wrote about at sportsNOLA.com, this is a sport where the powers typically prevail. It's really been controlled by a certain number of schools, much like the state wrestling.
Absolutely, and I do have to give another shout out to Ben Franklin. They're a perfect example of where this game has gone. It is all about club soccer, okay? It truly is, much like in other sports, but it truly is club soccer, and Ben Franklin's got a possibility to have a mini dynasty coming up, Kenny, because they've got some young kids coming in.
Michael, he's right. It is about club soccer. It's kind of like AAU basketball. Mm-hmm. You develop the kids in that discipline with professional type coaching and get them better and send them to the programs in the high school level, and they have a chance to do well. And obviously it's a sport that is #1 worldwide, and in America nowhere near that, but it is catching on and it's getting more traction here.
Yeah, and it's funny because I tried to play soccer.
Did you?
That's a hard sport. Mm-hmm. Trust me, there's a lot of running. I like to run, but I didn't like to run that much. And I used to tell a lot of kids that I see play soccer that, I take my hat off to them because it's a hard sport to do. I mean, you're trying to do something with your foot in the ball. So, I mean, now we starting to, really catch on to it. I have a couple of cousins that's actually playing soccer, and I like to see kids just run around doing what they're doing. So, I'm great that we are catching on to other sports.
Great to have the championships in New Orleans, Torrance, at Tad Gormley Stadium, and all 6 under one roof. They finally got that consolidated, and I think that's terrific.
Oh, that's great. Great for the city, great for the programs to be able to be home because we had a lot of our local teams to be able to make it. So that's great that the parents are able to see them. But again, we go back, as we said, guys, the kids are learning the fundamentals now. They're learning and they're going to these schools and they're ahead of the game right now. And that's what's making these powerhouse teams.
Well, it should be noted, too, that Patrick Mullins, a former Jesuit star, won the Player of the Year in America at the University of Maryland this year. The best soccer player in college soccer this year is from New Orleans. Patrick Mullins, the equivalent of the Heisman Trophy of football to Patrick Mullins of Maryland, who's a Jesuit product. So that's special. Keep an eye on him in the future for the American national squad. And, of course, high school basketball, the girls' quarterfinals taking place tonight as we speak, and the boys' quarterfinals are set for Tuesday night. Let's take a look at some of the quarterfinals that are taking place. The pairings. East St. John, what a story. Under Coach Yusuf Jasmine. They have to go to Ouachita Parish, who's a terrific team, the #1 seed. Tough task, but East St. John's good. Brother Martin, I'll be doing this one on radio. Big matchup at East Ascension, 2 of the best teams in the state. Como, the 3 seed, travels to Metairie to take on the Rummel Raiders. Great story for Rummel. It's most of their football players who won a state championship playing basketball and doing very well. In 4A, O'Perry Walker against the War Horses, the traditional power champion Peabody War Horses. And O'Perry Walker won earlier this year. East Jefferson and Northside, that's another great matchup. The Warriors have been outstanding at St. Augustine, traditional power at St. Thomas More. That's a rematch of a football quarterfinal matchup in 4A. So a lot of good matchups there in the upper classifications in 5A and in 4A. And in 2A, you got Curtis and Riverside going at it again. And, of course, first of all, in 3A, Farmerville and A meet. And in 2A, we mentioned Curtis and Riverside. They're playing again. 4th time this year. for those district rivals. And they're the last two state champions, by the way, in the class. And then St. Thomas Aquinas, Errol Goff, great job at home against Ville Platte. And in 1A, Country Day, Coach Mike McGuire at home against White Castle, Homa Christian on the road against a very good Christian Life team. So, Brian, quite a bit of good local representation still alive in the quarterfinals, even though a number 1 seed in Newman got knocked out in the regional
I saw
round.
that. Kenny, yeah, I'll tell you what, if I had to pick one game that I'd want to see, it would be Curtis at Riverside. I would love to see that matchup tomorrow night. In fact, I talked to Coach Mike Kreitzer earlier today, and he's excited about it, of course, and that's going to be good basketball.
Michael?
Well, I will be there. Actually, my little cousin is the point guard. Richard Durant is my little cousin that plays for Curtis.
Sophomore, he's a terrific talent.
Oh, yeah, I have to go over there and support him. So, that's a good thing, just to see him, from where he came from to where he's at now, and, loving every minute of it.
I mentioned a Rummel team, Michael, and the Curtis team has football players as well. Malachi Dupree, of course, had to step on board after football was over with, and they got 2 or 3 others. And once those football players get their basketball legs under them, we've seen that with Curtis, we've seen that with Rummel. They get better, and that's why their teams are doing well now.
Yeah, and I think it helps out a lot of kids that, they come from football, helping out with the basketball program, and they play both sports or whatever, just to help those teams that actually just have kids that come and just play basketball or just play football, for those kids to play both sports like that.
Well, another sport that's well underway now, got underway last week, was high school baseball. And of course, here at WHNO Channel 20, we're a big part of that in partnership with sportsNOLA.com and DW Productions, as we are stepping up with a 10-game schedule. The first NBC Prep Showcase returning next week. Our first matchup has the Shaw Eagles and the Jesuit Blue Jays. That's Monday, March 4th, to be shown at 8 p.m. here on WHNO. And then Brother Martin's Crusaders could be the most talented in the state. 4-0 thus far, haven't been scored on. We'll take on a very good St. Paul's Wolves team on Wednesday, March 6th on the North Shore in Covington at 8 p.m. This is the first of 10 games involving 12 teams, which will be great, Brian, and we look forward to it.
Our goal at Ben Franklin is to get on the television schedule of WHNO. That's our goal.
We look forward to it. Michael Lewis, it's been a pleasure having you, my friend. Thank you for being with us today. Keep up the great work with the Saints and keep running 4 threes.
Try my best. Thanks for having me.
It's all good. He's Michael Lewis. And we'll take a timeout and we'll continue with Brian Torrance and the crew as we continue with Sports NOLA TV from Back to Basics Basketball Academy in Harahan, right here on WHNO Channel 20. Back to Basics Basketball Academy is at 131 Evans Road in Harahan. You want to improve your skills, want to improve specific disciplines, want to learn more about the game, want to have time to invest in something that's very good. This is your opportunity. Back to Basics Basketball Academy in Harahan. Ken Trahan, joined now by Donald Robinson Jr., the director of Back to Basics Academy. Donald, thanks for having us here and welcome. And listen, this is a wonderful facility you have.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Talked about some of the things that are available here: individual training, team skills, discipline, just individual discipline skills that can be learned, and obviously the facilitation to handle each and every one of those aspects.
Absolutely. I mean, here at Back to Basics Basketball Academy, we have a year-round training facility. We do personal training with 3 professional basketball trainers that we have here. We have the youth league that's going on for kids that are 8 through 14. We have small group training. We have the training for advanced players and intermediate players. But most importantly, the kids come here and learn the game of basketball. We also expanding our services. We're getting ready to offer karate classes here. We're going to be doing Zumba classes. So it's just been a whole lot of activities that we have over here. We've been the best kept secret in Jefferson Parish for over a year now. We're trying to change that.
Yeah, also, you and I talked off air for a moment. We also talked about you guys putting a program together for kids for education as well.
Absolutely. One of the things that we're looking at is we have student athletes. So with that in mind, we're looking at the whole concept of putting basketball and education back together, which is why one of the things that we're doing, we're trying to build an education center over here at Back to Basics to have after-school programs and things like that.
Besides the stars that you have in for today's show, you had the Globetrotters in here last week.
Yeah, we had Firefly of the Harlem Globetrotters
Okay.
came by and they did the commercial. We really enjoyed the facility, and we had some kids that actually went to the show yesterday.
I'll tell you what.
And free play, there is an opportunity for free play. Talk about who's able to do that, who it's open to, and how this can occur on
Well, the
Fridays?
facility is open 7 days a week. We have daily activities that are taking place. You know, we have ball handling clinics, we have shooting clinics, we have group training for beginners, for intermediate players, and we have advanced players training as well. But then on Fridays, we have our Free Play Friday. So you become a member, you get access to all of those activities.
And you have a March Madness membership drive, and it's appropriate. March Madness, college basketball, talk about that.
Absolutely. With the March Madness membership drive, you can come in, and as opposed to paying for all the different activities that we have for the month of March, we're doing this membership drive where you pay the one-time membership fee of $48, and you get to do all of those activities 7 days a week at no cost.
Not just for guys. You got a lot
Not
of girls
just for
here
guys,
too.
we got a lot of girls as well.
Yeah.
What about older people like Brian? Do you have a senior citizen?
Yeah, do I get a senior citizen discount?
Brian can go in our advanced beginners class.
Thank
that
you.
we'll be hosting.
What's up with that? Wow.
Well, I saw his game early.
That explains it, of course.
I mean, he did hit a shot or two.
Thank you.
You got a Marcel Scott Skills and Drills Clinic coming up in April as well.
Yeah, one of the things that we're doing over here at Back to Basics Basketball Academy as well is doing our community give back. So 1 month, 1 day out of every month, we're going to be doing a Basketball Academy clinic. It's the Marcel Scott Skills and Drills Clinic that we're doing free for the community. Our first one is scheduled Friday, March the 15th from 6 to 8 p.m.
All right, online, let me give this to you. Listen carefully, write it down. This is the web address, b2basketballacademy.com, B2B Basketball Academy. B2B Basketballacademy.com. Let me say that once more. B, the number 2, the letter B, basketballacademy.com. And if they go there, they'll find everything under the sun that you could possibly want to know, that you ever wanted to know about basketball and Back to Basics Academy.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, it's great to be here. Thank you for having us today, Don. We really appreciate it. It's a great facility. We'll help it become less of a secret, I promise you.
Definitely. We appreciate you having here. And don't forget, on March 9th, we're actually hosting our first annual March Madness fundraiser at Spotlights at the Lakefront Arena. So come out from 7 to 10 and be involved in it.
Great plan. Well, this is our final Sports NOLA TV show of the year. Next week, our Sports NOLA Spotlights will take over, and we'll have Nate Singleton, the former Higgins and San Francisco 49ers star, with us then. Brian, it's been great for another year, my friend.
Kenny, I tell you what, it's gone too fast, but thanks for having me.
Pleasure. T, always a pleasure, my
Oh,
friend.
yes. This
Blessings
year's
to you
going
and
by
your family.
fast. Everything is going fast, but I appreciate it. Ken enjoyed it.
Always good. Want to thank each and every one of you for watching, and stay tuned because next week our spotlights take over. I know you'll enjoy them. Until then, Ken Trahan saying thanks for joining us. Be a good sport. God bless you one and all. Rounding third and heading home. So long.